You're listening to Trek.fm.
Welcome to From There to Here, Trek.fm's 50th Anniversary Star Trek Rewatch. We're going through all 729 Star Trek adventures, from Enterprise to Star Trek Beyond and everything in between. I'm Zach Moore, host of Standard Orbit, and I'm joined by...
Richard Marquez.
What's up, Richard?
Not much. How you doing?
Good, man. So this is our first block together.
It is.
On From There to Here. It's exciting. So we've been on we were on Melodic Treks together a few months back.
Uh-huh.
And it's exciting to do From There to Here. You know, it's a great thing about this. You mix and match with different hosts. It's fun. It's fun. So Richard does a lot of awesome behind-the-scenes stuff on the network. He helped us out not too long ago with some publishing. So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
So we were talking about 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine today, Return to Grace and Sons of Mogh. We'll start with Return to Grace. In this episode, Kira and Gul Dukat chase the Klingon bird of prey that destroyed a Cardassian outpost, where Cardassian and Bajoran representatives were holding a conference. So, Richard, what did you think of Return to Grace?
This is the one with Zial, isn't it? Yeah, it is. But this is the first time. This is the first time we meet. No, this is the second time. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and she seems to age quite a bit every time we see her as well. Sometimes
Right.
she's got that Alexander Rozhenko gene in her.
There you go. Yeah, I remember that because I did Indiscretion with Mike. So yeah, that's where we first found her. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I like the episode. To me, it felt like it was bringing Zial back, and it was more of a filler to me. Obviously, Zial was probably the B plot story, and obviously them chasing after this bird of prey was, I guess, the A. I don't know.
It's interesting you say A plot, B plot. I kept waiting for them to, cut back to the station at some point to have, I don't know, Nog and Jake are trying to sell some stem bolts, or Chief O'Brien and Dr. Bashir having a holosuite competition or something. There was no B plot in this episode. It was just Kira and Dukat on this bird of prey the entire time. And it was like, oh, okay. And I had to laugh about how they incorporated the main cast. Like, Kira's in the infirmary at the beginning. Bashir's doing something. Worf walks in. Okay, so they're off the list. Okay, cross them off. Then the whole rest of the episode is just Kira on this bird of prey with Dukat. And at the very end, she comes back, and it's Dax, Sisko, and O'Brien and Ops. And they have like 30 seconds. And then the last scene is Kira's walking on the promenade, and Odo walks up to her and talks. And that's how this was the most easiest money the rest of the cast of Deep Space Nine got the entire show. So to that point, to that end, though, the pacing just felt really weird in this episode, because I was expecting some subplot or something, but we just stayed on the bird of prey the whole time. And I don't want to say it was boring, because there was interesting stuff there. I'm not really sure. Like, I liked it. I thought it was a good episode, but I did feel like it could have used another something to make it more exciting.
What do you think was interesting about the episode?
Well, Dukat, he's, in my opinion, Gul Dukat's Star Trek's best villain. Yeah, he's a very complicated guy, and as he tries to win over Kira in this episode, he tries to explain himself.
Yeah.
So that's what do you think about the whole Kira Dukat dynamic?
I get it. They want to create conflict and drama between within the series. I mean, mortal enemies, obviously, on both sides. One's done tragic things to another, and then vice versa. And I guess it works. I mean, it's just every time I watch DS9, and besides the one episode where Dukat goes insane, I can't remember which one it is. It's later on.
Waltz in season 6. Yeah.
Right. And when he starts seeing, obviously the people from his past mocking him basically he's going crazy. That's probably my very favorite one that Kira is in with him. Granted, it's not about him and her. It's about Sisko and him, or Dukat. And, but I mean, every time I see an episode, it's like, oh God, another Kira and Dukat episode again, and it's like I'm not too fond of it. I
follow you, because this guy is basically like Hitler right? He's the Hitler of Bajor, or a high Nazi official, if you will, because that's the parallel here. Germany would be Cardassia, and the Jews would be the Majorans, and so I just find it so insane that Kira would just even humor this guy at all. It just I don't know, like he's a complicated guy, and just because he does some nice things every now and then, he always has an ulterior motive anyway. So that kind of wipes that out. And I don't know, like sometimes she's really hardcore about it. She's like, let's keep this professional and blah 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 blah. But the other time she's like, oh, ha ha ha, you still have a sense of humor, Dukat. I'm like, why are you laughing around with this guy, palling around with this guy? And then she's gonna raise his daughter at the end of this episode. So that's a pretty big responsibility for her to take on too.
It makes sense. I mean, it adds more to Kira, and definitely, gives her something to do in a sense in this series now. Because every interaction we really see of her is about the religion of Bajor and the prophets and whatnot. And I guess, and then her as a freedom fighter, terrorist, whatever you want to call her. And now they add this like, I guess in a sense an emotion. Well, I guess the religious part is an emotional part of it too. But I mean, I don't know. I like it. I like her interaction with her. It's it definitely grows the character for Zial, and especially Kira too.
Well, this is also Damar's first appearance in the show. He's just like well, I wouldn't say nameless, but he's almost the equivalent of a nameless guy on the bridge. He's like, Damar set a course for this, Damar set a course for that. Little did they know that he was going to become such a pivotal character down the road, especially in the final chapter of Deep Space Nine, those last 10 episodes. So it's just interesting to see how these bit characters here and there, grow, and they clearly had no big plans for him, but it's cool they kept bringing back this character. It could have just easily been anyone. And finally, I just wanted to say that I had to laugh about Dukat talking about Kira's boyfriends. He's like, first Fedi Barile and now First Minister Shakar.
It's like he's watching her profile or something like that.
Yeah, he's Facebook stalking her.
It's like, wait a second, your stuff is public still.
So yeah, so beside his Kira obsession though, I really do like Gul Dukat as a villain. I really do feel like he's Star Trek's best villain, most developed one for sure. And he has this great line in this episode: "Everything I've lost, I will regain." And that's kind of like MacArthur. He's like, "I shall return," So that's just his megalomania, and really comes across here. So yeah, any episode that focuses on Dukat is a good episode in my book. So moving on to Sons of Mogh. In this episode, Worf's brother Kurn arrives on the station and asks Worf to kill him. Meanwhile, Klingon ships are detected outside Bajoran space. Now, this episode was a story that needed to be told, in my opinion, because, Worf is making some big decisions that would, impact him personally and his family, as Gowron threatened him in Way of the Warriors, like, your house will be stripped of its titles and your brother kicked off the High Council, and we're seeing the consequences of Worf's decision. And it is funny that Worf's like, Kurn, where have you been? I've been trying to talk to you for months. It's like, yeah, Kurn, where have you been? Because we haven't seen Kurn since believe it or not, TNG, like a redemption two-parter. Because Tony Todd is great. He's a great actor. He was in The Visitor. He's Kurn. He's done lots of other genre things. He's probably best known as the Candyman. So it's just great to see him on Star Trek. And but yeah, Kurn only has I guess 4 episodes total, which is insanely small amount. But he does the best of it. And I always love him and Worf's dynamic. And seeing him here just at the end of his rope. I mean, he wants Worf to kill him because he has nothing to live for.
Obviously it raises the question of is suicide, definitely something that is acceptable, especially in the 24th century. But then again, it is also another culture. I would assume that in the Federation that would either be banned or not viewed as a good thing because everyone doesn't want him to do it.
Worf cannot catch a break. Like on TNG or Deep Space Nine, whenever he tries to kill himself or kill someone else, somebody always barges in and stops him. Yeah. And man, how about that Klingon chest? That was pretty intense looking. Kurn's chest there. Like you don't really think about these Star Trek aliens having a different body under their clothes, but you can kind of see how they have that sort of a exoskeleton, I guess, because they're more hardcore warriors.
And don't they have 2 hearts or something like that? They have a lot of redundancies. Or at least that's what they said or at least that's what they said in TNG.
Yeah, in the episode Ethics, where Worf like breaks it. They don't have two spines though, but yes, they do have very like internal anatomy. That's how Star Trek gets around it, right? It's like Spock has his heart where his liver's supposed to be, and they're more alien than they look, even though they're just
So he should have stabbed him at least twice, or at least something a little bit more, like cut his head off like a samurai.
Well, I love it. I love when Worf comes to visit Kurn too after he's been saved, and he's like, "Your time has not yet come," and Kurn's like, "Well, I guess that's for you to decide as well." Would I like to see more of Kurn after this? Sure, absolutely. But same thing with Thomas Riker, right? Would I love to see more of him? Absolutely. But I'd rather have at least this one follow up on Deep Space Nine than nothing at all, because it could have just as easily never seen Kurn again. Like I have my Smallville podcast, so I'm always talking about Smallville. Smallville's always on my brain, that young Superman show. There is a subplot in the second season of Smallville where Lex Luthor had a brother, and then you finally get to meet him in one episode, and it's like a big deal, and then you never hear about him again. 8 more years of that show, and you never hear about Lex Luthor's brother, Lucas Luthor, and it's like the biggest, most annoying plot hole as a fan, and I'm glad that they acknowledged Kurn here, because Worf is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's with Klingons and Gowron and all that, and it would have been it kind of makes it more complicated for him later on, like when he joins the House of Martok and all that. If he would have had Kurn around, what do you do with Kurn? Although at the end of this episode he does say, "I have no family," which is not entirely true. He's got his son, he's got his adoptive parents on Earth, he's got his adoptive brother. It's a very powerful line, like in the context of this episode. But when you step back and think about it, you're like, that's not true at all, Worf.
Well, and just like everything else, Worf always has to be alone every time. I got to stand against the tide all by myself, like he's the modern day Kahless.
Yeah, well, that's to do with Worf. Like he puts Klingon tradition on a pedestal because he's an outsider, and that's the great thing when Martok finally shows up on the show, kind of teaches him just how to be a practical Klingon. Worf's kind of got his heads in the clouds too much about this and that. And a great scene in this episode is when Sisko dresses down Worf and Dax. There is a YouTube compilation. It's called, I think, Captain Sisko Yells at Everyone. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. It's hilarious. It's Avery Brooks going full Avery Brooks, and a lot of the clips come from this particular scene where he's just chewing out Dax and Worf. He's like, "Both of you, get out!" He just goes full Avery, and it's great.
Oh, God.
Well, yeah, any other thoughts on this episode, Richard?
Like I said, it's basically the whole entire story is about, assisted suicide and whether or not it's right or wrong. And, he's going through, obviously, his turmoil within himself, what he needs, what he should do, But, classic Star Trek, they got to wipe their memory or do something to change them, and now they don't know, and there we go. Wish we could do that now.
Right. It's such a clean, easy way to do it. I like how they asked Bashir, well, how long is it going to take, Doctor? He's like, "Oh, well, erasing his memory is simple. Well, that'll just take an hour. But it's all the plastic surgery is going to take a while." Yeah, we can change his brain, no problem. But yeah, that is kind of a cheat, and, we never see Kurn again. I'm not sure how they would have incorporated it. Is he somehow start remembering who he is and all this or that? But there was so much Klingon stuff going on, you didn't really need to. Maybe
he gets hit in the head like a donkey or something like that by a targ, and he regains all his memories back.
Right. But yeah, that's the end of Kurn. A nice, clean solution to that very complicated problem that technology solves. So,
yay, technology!
Yay! So, Richard, I think we've said about all we can about these 2 episodes, at least in this context. If people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at xransom, and I'm also on Facebook at the Babel Conference.
Awesome. As for me, I am the host of Standard Orbit, so you can find us here on Trek.fm every Monday talking about the original series. Personally, I'm on Twitter at MooreOnZach. That's MooreOnZach. And as I referenced earlier, I'm also the host of another podcast called Always Hold On to Smallville, where we talk about each and every episode of the Young Superman show We're on Twitter at AlwaysMallville with one S. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Richard and I will be back tomorrow to talk about an episode of Voyager, Dreadnought, and another episode of Deep Space Nine, Bar Association.